So yeah, so sorry about that. So yeah, hello everybody. I'm glad you made it. So this is, and Maria and I were saying, we'll start over. This is probably what our fourth office hours that we've done together. Last one we did was the AZ305, which we did some case study examples. If you missed that, it is in my YouTube channel or it's in the Microsoft Learn Room so that you can monitor that. And there's other ones too that, they're in the Microsoft Learn Room. I'm going to eventually move all those videos slowly over to the YouTube channel. Just been really busy. And then this one is being live streamed through YouTube right now. So if you have access to my YouTube channel, you can jump over there and see it as well. So you can have it on both monitors. No, just kidding. You don't have to do that. And then the recording will be available in my YouTube channel. I probably won't move the recordings from YouTube into the Microsoft Learn Room, but I will make sure that in the Microsoft Learn Room that I always post the link to the video so that you have it going forward. All right. So let's get going. So before we get into all your questions, because I know you all have so many questions, one of the things I always like to do is how do you get into the actual information about the exam? So what I always recommend is type in a browser, and Microsoft Bing browser is the best because it is owned by Microsoft. So it's going to bring up the Microsoft articles first. I'm not saying you can't use Google. That's fine, obviously. But always look for, so as you can see, I typed in AZ-104 exam. And when you scroll down, look for the one that has the Microsoft Learn, right? And then when you click on that, I highly recommend that you make sure that you log into your profile. So you can see I'm currently logged into my profile. And this is great because it tracks, all the Learn modules you do. And then as you can see right in here, I need to renew the certification. So I passed this certification years ago. And with the new renewal, now I can go in, and every time I log into, a particular exam or page, it'll notify me if I need to renew this. And this is really handy because if you don't get the emails for whatever reason, maybe they're being blocked or junk mail, or maybe you don't even look at that mailbox, whatever reason, as long as you're logged into your profile, then it will let you know if you need to renew. So good way to always check that. I would recommend, like any of the exams you've passed, go and log into that exam page and then verify if you need to renew. But you should receive an email from Microsoft or MS Learn that you need to update. So down in here, when you scroll down, the big pieces in here that I always like about this is this part, right? So how do you prepare for the exam? How do you practice for the exam? How do you take the exam? And then finally, once you pass, how do you renew that certification? Sorry, I've got two chats. One thing about doing StreamYard, I got two chats to manage. Click on view. Okay, thanks. You okay? Full screen share. Oh, I think because I'm streaming. Okay, got it. You guys are good. Good. So yeah, so this is the page where you want to go to and learn all about your exams. As I'm going to scroll down, you can see in here, kind of what to expect in this exam. So what you need to be studying. So the big thing you want to do is, and I'm going to jump right down to the bottom here, prepare for, is you always want to go through, what we call the Learn modules. This is kind of step one, and this is the way I do it in my exam, preparing stages, is I go through the Learn modules, right? And when you go through the Learn modules, it's going to give you that I'm not going to say high level because it's not quite right, but it's going to give you the understanding of what to expect in the exam and so on. And then once you've done through the Learn modules, then you want to scroll down, and you want to scroll to the part that says your study guide. This is one of the most important pages, right? Sorry, I'm using a mouse. I need my colleague Rob to show me how to write with a mouse. Maria's cringing looking at my mouse. But this is where you want to go to learn exactly what to expect on this exam. And when you click on here, it gives you a really, really good breakdown. So as I scroll down, where is it? Skills measured. Keep going. Skills at a glance. Okay, right here. Right when it starts with this, right? It's going to be breaking down into sections, and that's the percentage to expect on the exam. Here's what I do. So as I'm prepping to learn this, I go like this, and you can either ask Copilot. So if you're using a Bing Edge browser, then you can either ask Copilot or you can search. If you go ask Copilot, then what it's going to do is it's going to give you a breakdown of, what, yeah, in here. Okay. So now this is interesting though. Copilot's funny sometimes. Sometimes it's funny it didn't read that page, because normally it would see that it was an Azure page. So it's kind of hit and miss. But anyway, you can go do it that way, or what I do is just go in and click on search. Right? And then that'll pop up on how to create users and groups. So I always recommend that when you're studying, let me scroll down again, you go through each bullet, right? There's a lot. As I scroll through, there's a lot of things you need to know. But the nice thing about this is when you go through each bullet, it's going to give you that understanding, and it's going to take you to pages. And in some cases, it'll take you to pages where, if you've got a sandbox or a subscription, where you can actually start doing hands-on. So once you've gone through and gone through all of that, then my next step, what I recommend, is go to GitHub. Right? When you're in GitHub, type in the top here the course code, so AZ-104. And when you get here, look for, again, the Microsoft Learning. This is your hands-on labs. Now, always look in the About section. Not every course will have this, but AZ-104 does. And go to this page instead, because it's nicely laid out. So in here, this is where you can download the files you need, right? Because there's going to be scripts that you're going to run. And then when you click on here, it gives you the lab instructions step by step. Now, yes, it doesn't give you a lab environment. You'll have to use your own environment to run these, but this is your hands-on practice. And AZ-104 is one of those exams where you need hands-on. I honestly, unless you have a photographic memory, there's no way you're going to pass the exam without the hands-on experience. It's a very detailed exam, and it's one of those exams too that you could potentially get the performance testing. And I say potentially because it all depends on, what is it called? The performance that they have in their lab environment. If there's enough, if they have enough utilization to deliver these performance testing. So what you're going to see is you're going to get, at the end of the exam, you're going to go through all your multiple choice. There's no case study questions, so you don't have to worry about that. You're going to go through the multiple choice, and you're going to go through that dreaded section where it's going to give you a question 5 times, and you have to pick which service to use, and you can't go back. I hate those sections. But anyway, it'll give you that section, and then finally you'll get the performance testing, and it'll give you either between 5 to 10 tasks, and it's going to give you a lab environment, and you'll have to do these tasks with no instructions. This is why you need to be able to be very familiar with the portal, right? Scripting, yes, scripting helps, right? You can definitely go through and do the scripting as well. Yeah, when it says, so let's say it says create an Azure load balancer, you have 2 choices. You can either open up Cloud Shell, and if you know the script command, type them all out and run it, or you can do it through the UI. They don't monitor or give you marks for how you got there. They give you marks for if you completed it right. So this is really, and what I just said there is really important to note, because I was doing an MS, and I think it was the MS-100 exam, one of the exams, and it asked me to do something, and I did it, and then I realized I did it wrong. And I was like, oh crap. So I went and deleted it and then redid it right. That's fine. They don't dock you for marks on that as long as you get it done right. And if it took you 3 times to do it, it's all good. You'll just run out of time potentially.
I can also, sorry, Sarah, can also recommend the credentials. If someone doesn't have a subscription, so can highly recommend our applied skills.
Yeah, very good. And yeah, let me go into here. And then Maria, you can, what ones do you suggest that would help for this course?
I would say there is one called Secure Networking. So,
oh wait,
no, you're not on the credentials. Yeah.
Let me do that again.
So it's on the first page is where you have one here, configure secure access to your workloads using Azure networking. So that's where you get to work with the endpoints. So it was just up there.
Oh, was it? I missed it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's right on the top, like on this third row, I believe. Or fourth. Yeah, so you see there, yes. And then there's also one that has to do with the storage.
Yep.
So this one here I can recommend, and here you get an environment set up for you. So you don't need to have your own subscription. You get provided here with the credentials, so username and password.
Yeah.
And these are completely free to take, so you can take them as many times as you want to. You need a percentage to pass, and you have 2 hours to complete these.
Yeah. And if you fail, nobody sees that failure, right? Just like if you fail an exam, nobody sees that failure, right? When you send your transcript. So don't worry about failing it. I failed a couple because I ran out of time. One, I was doing the SQL one and I was like, and the virtual machine didn't launch properly. And I gave feedback to Microsoft about that. And that was back when the applied skills were having some technical issues. And I failed it. I'm like, oh, I got a failure because the machine didn't launch. So yeah, sometimes it might not launch, but just be aware that if you fail or you timed out, you have to wait 72 hours before you can launch it again and redo it or take it. But yeah, these are, and you can see the results. Like mine was only 67%. A pass is a pass, right?
Yes.
All right, let's not look at that. But actually, you can look at that, and then you can see, and this is really important. Like, I'm glad you brought this up. I always forget about these. You can see where I was bad, right? I can't currently create NSGs. I'm a little bit embarrassed showing you all this. But yeah, so you can see where your weaknesses are. And then you're like, oh, I really need to step up my NSG game. So, or firewalls. But yeah, I passed. So anyway, and then, for me, I should retake this, right? And bring up my mark a lot better. But yeah, those are good in there. And then even though you only 2 hours, maybe when you finished everything, and let's say you got a half an hour left, go in and fiddle with it, right? But don't make any big changes or else you might get not marked. So yeah, that's a very good point. So do your reading, do your labs, do your applied skills. So those are the first 3 things. And then the last thing I recommend is the measure up. I still use this today. Oh, and they got a 50% sale right now. So go to measure up, go to AZ-104, and you're looking for the practice test. So right now it's on for half price. And it depends, right? Let me go view product. Why did I open? You can either do 1 year online and watch the price change, though. Be careful, right? You can download it. You got 60 days or you've got 30 days. So the 30 days is half price, but if you do 60s, you can see the difference in prices. And the measure up is really good because it asks you questions and you can see, so then you put in your answer and then you can say, mark my answer or view my answer, sorry. And then it tells you why. If you got it wrong, it tells you why. And then it'll give you links. We also too have practice tests. So if I scroll back up in here, does it have the practice test in here? Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, right here. There's your free practice to test. So you can run through this as many times as you want and go through that. And then the other one is the exam sandbox. Like if you're never taken a Microsoft exam, I highly recommend to go through that. Tired just reading questions, but we got Maria and Anya helping. Awesome. All right. So that is, kind of an overview of, how to get into the exam, what to expect with the exam, how to study for the exam, and so on. So now I'm going to pass it over to all of you. Do you have any questions on any of the topics in the AZ-104 exam that you're currently studying for, or maybe you're going to start studying, or maybe you've taken the exam and you didn't do so well, or you have any questions on something that we can help you with? So if you're stuck on a particular service, I'm going to pause there. What? This is an office hours. You're supposed to ask me questions. No? Salama, that's funny. I can see you off mute, but I can't hear you. Oh, because my mic's on. Let me turn the mic on. Oh, now I'm.
I also don't know if you want to answer. I'm not sure how the MCT, how that account looks like. If you want to answer that question in the chat.
I can hear you now. Fine.
I don't know if you're. I can't hear since I'm not in the meeting, so just let me know if you want me to do something.
So I'm trying to understand your question. So you're asking about the 180 days in the MCT tool. Where are you seeing that? I don't think it's working. You should be able to unmute now, Maria. I turned my audio thing off. Assessment exam in the MCT portal. Oh, the MCT portal. So I'm a little, okay. So you mean the practice exam? I'm trying to think the MCT portal. See, if you're talking about the MCT lounge, that's totally different. The only exam assistant link enabled within less than 6 months remain. Huh. Do you know where that is, Maria? That assessment? I'm trying to think. The only thing I can
Which
think of.
assessment?
Yeah, I'm not too
Which
sure.
assessment?
Are you talking about this one? If you look at my screen. Oh, so yeah, that's weird. I don't know why. Hold on, let me leave out of here. I'm just disconnecting. Okay, I don't know why that is saying that you only have less than 6 months remaining. Have you ever seen that, Maria?
No, that's not for the practice assessment. They are available for everyone online. So anyone, you can go in and take any of our practice assessments. You each have a pool of 100 questions. So it's just available for, but you need to sign in, I believe, to learn in order to access these. That's all.
Yeah, so make sure that you're logged into your profile and then, yeah. Oh, you got it? Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. I was like, what? Since when did we do that? Yeah, and then go into here. And then if you scroll down, right there, right? So there's the option to do that practice assessment. Okay, good. All right, good. I'm glad you got it. All right. I think I have to figure out another way for, I think that if you, anyway, sorry. Okay, any other questions? No? All right, well, I think it's then our turn to ask questions. What do you think, Maria?
Yes. So I can say something like I delivered the AZ305 last week, and for that course, you need to have the AZ104 in order to get the certification. And I know some questions that we get a lot from people who were also studying for the AZ104 was a lot of questions when it comes to access. It was about management groups. So that's something that we did a lot of clarification on in that course. So I can say that is something that you need to know also for this, for the AZ104, knowing about how it works with the permissions. Need to know the difference, for example, managed identities, the user assigned, system assigned managed identities.
Yeah. Did you want to share your screen and walk through management groups and access with that?
Yes, I can do that. So I would just quickly pop up one little thing here on my whiteboard here.
Yeah, and what Maria was saying is that when you take exam AZ104 and pass that, and then when you take exam AZ305 and pass that, then you get the architect expert designation. So it's 2 exams to get that architect expert designation. Other than that, like if you just say, well, I just want Azure administrator, then you're still an Azure administrator certificate. But if you want that expert status and you get the badge and everything, and you can show off that you're an expert on architect, then you need AZ104 and AZ305.
So you should see my whiteboard now.
Yep, add to stage. I added it for you.
Yes, great. So something that we that you need to know for this, great, thank you. That you need to know for this is when it comes to, so you need, of course, to have you need a subscription in order to create the resources. So we need to have a subscription. We also need to have the right permissions in that subscription. So I can create, for example, an application or create a virtual machine, for example. And you also need to put your resources. Where do your so what is it called where you need to like this folder or container where you have your resources? What is that called? This type of container, we call it something here. Yes, good job, Navid. So you have a resource group. So we need to put our resources in a resource group, and you also should have a good naming for these as well. So that's where we more organize our resources, and then we can also control access to this. So what you need to know for this exam is knowing there are 3 built-in roles in Azure. So you have 3 built-in roles that apply to all the resources. Do any of you know these 3 built-in roles apply to all Azure resources? So these are very good to know for this exam here. There will definitely be questions about these. Yes, good job. So you have owner, you have reader, or put them like this. You have owner, you have contributor, and you have reader. And then you choose a scope for these. And these are we call RBAC, Azure RBAC, role-based access control. So we choose a scope for this, and I can be an owner, for example, from management group level, or I can be an owner, for example, just for a subscription. And that means I will then have that role for everything within that subscription. So you have an inheritance down in this hierarchy. So if I'm an owner for a management group, which can hold maybe 10 subscriptions, that means I'm going to be an owner, be able to manage resources, grant access for everything below that management group. So if I'm, for example, an owner, so I'm an owner on a subscription level. Yeah, exactly. So you have an inheritance down in this hierarchy. So that means I can manage everything within this subscription. We'll also be able to grant access to others with this owner role. So I could grant access to someone else. Then you know the difference between owner and contributor. Both of these can manage resources. But the owner can do something the contributor cannot do.
And hint, that is an exam question. I remember getting this exam question.
Yes, owner can grant access, exactly. So they can both manage resources and grant access. So that's something that the contributor cannot do. Reader can just view resources. Their permissions stop at read. Yes, exactly. Sarah, do you want to discuss your question there? Or is it if anyone knows the answer to that?
Yeah, does anyone know? Like, if you have, because we know inheritance happens. So if you know what Maria was saying, if I get owner rights at the management group, then I can manage all my subscriptions that could be attached to that management group, because that's all about inheritance. Is there a way, let's say I say, oh, this resource group, I want to remove that owner. Can we do that? What do you think? It's okay if you get wrong answer. Is the high privilege, exactly. But let's say I said, this owner, even though the owner is at the management group level, I have a particular resource group that only certain people should see. And that one owner shouldn't even see what's in that resource group or manage what's in that resource group. Can I remove that owner? This will be on your exam, trick questions. I'll give you a hint. If any of you are on-premises Active Directory administrators that manage GPOs, it's the opposite of what you can do in a GPO. That was a pretty good hint. Yeah, so can you deny at the resource level? Exactly, Naveed. That's basically what I'm asking. Can I go in and deny that owner? Yeah, so I think you're, Salamat, that you're on the right path there. There is no such thing as block inheritance in the cloud. So when you're working in on-premises and you've got GPOs, or let's say you're working with NTFS permissions, you can always go to a folder and say, I want explicit permissions. Or in GPOs, I can say, I want to block inheritance. And that's on-premise. And so you would think coming into the cloud, you could do that, but you can't. So this is why management groups are important to utilize, right? Because management groups, you can have, what is it? 7, Maria? 7 levels?
Up to 6 levels in depth, and then you also have the root management group, yes.
Yeah. So with the management groups, it's really, really important to structure your resources properly. And, don't just think, oh, this person needs access to something and everything, because the higher you give them access, and I mean higher in the hierarchy, which is management group, subscriptions, resource groups, and resources. If I give someone owner access at management group, guess what? I just gave them the keys to the kingdom, right? And there's no way I can block that. So you really need to define your permissions. And this course, like this exam, doesn't go into too detail about that. It is good to know. It's when you start taking AZ305 and getting some more of the architect structure that you really need to understand how things filter. But this exam will test you a little bit on that. So yeah, Maria, go for it. Explain how that works.
Yeah, sure. So you have, so when it comes to management groups, this is to give you that level of scope above subscription level. So you can see here when it comes to scope, for example, for RBAC, it can be applied on a management group level instead of, for example, just on a subscription level. Anyone knows why would we use management groups? What is this good for? Let's see, we have a lot of subscriptions. So why would management groups be good to use? Yeah, organized subscriptions, exactly, by department. So you would have, there's always a root management group. And then we can create one, for example, this can be the management group for IT. And then we add subscriptions to this management group that belong to IT. So we can say maybe these subscriptions here belong to IT. And this gives you a higher scope, meaning that we can apply a policy. We can apply, or multiple policies, you can apply access control and do that on a scope above subscription level. I mean, we don't have to go into every single subscription here and apply that. You can also have more levels of these management groups. So it can be, for example, if you have HR, and then it could be some sub levels under HR. So we have, for example, HR, and then we want to, for example, have different, maybe there are different regions under this. So you have North Europe, just as an example, West Europe, for example. And then we add the subscriptions that belong to these. Meaning here we have more control when it comes to applying. So we're going to have some main policies here, for example, for HR. And then for West Europe, they're going to be some different setups than we have for North Europe, for example. So this is something that we create. You can edit this as well, and that we add subscriptions. So here's where we have the subscriptions here that we add to these management groups. So it's to give you that level of scope, be able to organize your subscriptions. So I did this. So one training that I did, which was when we did these on site, where I had one participant there, and he said, this was even before we started with management groups. He said, we have so many subscriptions. We have really no control over who uses which subscription. We have no control really which department uses which subscription. And we started talking about management groups, and he, during the training, started to create management group, organize subscriptions, and they get much better control doing that. So that meant that he could say, well, these are the subscriptions that belong to IT. Now we have one place where we can add our policies, role-based access control, if we want to have this on a higher scope.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, I'll get some learners will say, well, I only have one subscription. Should I still use management groups? Well, no, you don't necessarily need to. But think about scalability, right? So people will always start with one subscription, but I guarantee you're not going to end with just one subscription. You're going to have multiple. So essentially, think about scaling that out. So when you when you build your company or start working with subscriptions, and let's say you only have one, still think about using a management group, because chances are you're going to add more subscriptions as your company grows in the cloud. And then you've already started that thought process about management groups, and then it's easy for you just to scale that. Yeah. And the big thing to really note, if you scroll back up there in your drawing, Maria, is that hierarchy. That hierarchy is so important to understand, especially in this exam, and especially in the AZ305, how things inherit. If I place permissions on resource groups, then, and resource groups is great to manage within a subscription. But, I've had companies that have resource groups that are just networking. So they're just virtual networks in a resource group, and that's it, because they have a network admin team that manages networking. So resource groups are really good for that specific, role-based security. You are the Azure administrator. You are the network administrator. You are the database administrator. And you can see in Maria's drawing, she's got a resource group just for SQL. You're the database administrator. So you're going to put your resource groups that are just have databases, and then assign security on that. Yeah. So security is a really important topic, but we've got 13 minutes left, and I kind of want to leave it off with policies, because policies to me is the next logical step, right? Yeah. So once you've got your permissions set, then the second thing that you want to do is start thinking about the policies, right? And policies are written in what language, everybody? What language is the language of the cloud? Does anyone know? I'm looking over at my chat here. The language of the cloud, when you want to create scripts, JSON, you got it. So whenever you're working with policies and even custom RBAC rollback, you're going to be looking at working with JSON language, right? And Azure policy is essentially a JSON script. Everything in Azure has what we call resource provider, right? So you start with what we call resource providers, and virtual networks is a resource provider. Databases are resource providers. I've always liked to say resource providers are similar to like a schema, and it's the cloud schema. And so in order to, limit, or you can either allow, deny, or you can audit in a policy, you need to, configure your resource providers. And you do that using a JSON script. So long story short, the thing is that if let's say you have virtual machines and you're building all these compute workloads, and you have, in certain countries, you want to limit, first of all, that they build their machines only in that region, and that they make sure that they use specific SKUs, right? SKUs are important because I can tell you from firsthand experience, I had a company I was consulting with, and they didn't have any policies in place. And one of the people built one of the HPCs, so the high performance computers, and left it running for a month, and their bill was $25,000. Imagine, first of all, where's your billing budget alerts? That was another topic for another day. But secondly, that could have been prevented by a policy, right? A policy that said, in this region, these are the only SKUs you're allowed to use, right? And there's these lovely policies that you can implement. Yeah. What else? You got anything else with that one? I never really understood JSON. JSON is a really weird one, right? Yeah, there's a question here in the YouTube chat. I never really understand JSON. JSON's one of those languages that I think is backwards. It's got too many commas, but you can always ask Copilot. I know. Can you tell we're Microsoft people? Yes. You can always ask Copilot to write you a JSON script on something. And the other thing too is, if you don't understand JSON, look at Bicep. So Bicep is Microsoft's language that the underlying language is JSON, but we've simplified it. So yeah, Bicep is a lot easier to use. Yeah. And then the other thing too is, think about, you can always export any of our, our policies and custom roles, and you can export those scripts, and then you can modify them and then import them back in. So you can always reuse what we've already got. Yeah. Do you want to explain more about policies after you did all your beautiful drawings?
Yeah, no worries. No, so this was a great example of adding when it comes to region, adding when it comes to SKU. You should also know when it comes to the scope here that it's from management group level, can be on subscription level, or resource group. You can exclude some resources from a policy. But if you apply this, let's say, for example, we put that the scope for this is, for example, you put it on a resource group. And then, for example, we have someone try, let's say you limit this, the region, for example, can only be, for example, UK South. And then you set a specific SKU for this. What happens if someone now tries to deploy? So we have tries to deploy a new VM that's located in, for example, North Europe, and tries to deploy it to this resource group. What will happen with this? Is this going to be allowed, or will this be denied? So the policy is set up on that resource group, and yeah, exactly. It depends on both when it comes to type of policy, exactly. So if this is, for example, a deny policy, that means, like I said, this machine is not going to be allowed. You have to change the region for this. It can be, for example, well, it's just an audit policy, for example. That means it's going to be allowed, but we have audits set up for this. So, and this is called the effect of the policy. So if this is, for example, deny policy, that means this person will not be allowed to deploy this virtual machine to that resource group in a different region than what is stated here in this policy definition.
So what's changed? I don't know if it's changed because I haven't done this in a while, but I remember back when I tried to do this and I demoed it in a class, that when you apply a policy like this, so let's say you did it like exactly by this drawing. So you said you can only deploy in UK South, in region 2, resource group 2, sorry. And then this person tries to deploy in North Europe, and let's say they're using the portal to deploy. When did they get that error message?
Yeah, so this is different depending on the resource. And I will just, I'll see, I have to just reshare here in order to change to my, Yeah,
because it's different. Like if you deploy in the portal and then you deploy in a script and it's a policy that's blocking you, you get two different things that happen, right? In a script, it will run through it and then it'll come back and it'll fail, right? And then if you got logging on, you'll be able to see that. But in the UI, here, let me add I have to add you to stage. There we go. But in the UI, what happens then?
Yeah, so it depends on the resource. But if I, for example, I don't have a policy for this, but if I try to create, for example, a new virtual machine, it will tell me that in the UI, so under this region here is where we see that, it will tell me here that this region is not allowed, change to the UK South instead. So it depends on the resource that you deploy, really where you get this message in the UI.
And it used to be, because and I wanted to confirm that that's where you see the message, because sometimes you'll say, well, I just deployed the policy, and then it goes right to, where you go to review and create, and what it does is it validates it. Sometimes that's when you'll get the policy message. But
it has changed a lot now. So for most resources, you see it right away in this UI. So I would see it in this location here, for example, for a virtual machine now that I'm creating. So then it would tell me that message here.
Gary had a question. What's the order of the policy being implemented? I remember seeing something about audit, apply, etc.
Yeah, that has to do with the policy effect. So if I'm in here and I just show you this here, and I'll just have to do a little reshare here. So now I share this one here.
Got it.
So here is where I have all the different effects. So here I can see the different effects, if there are some interchanging effects, and then we have, it's called the order of evaluation. So this is the order that it will be checked. So check disabled first, if it should be an evaluated policy, then you have append, the deny policy, audit, manual, audit not exist, and deny action last. So this is the order that it will take. So look at these policies. So I would say this page here is really good to give you that full view of really, you have that in the chat as well. There's also some definitions here. So this site has been updated. It's very good now, and now they added a lot of now we have a lot of clarifications here. So you can see there are also some examples here how it works if you have policy 1, policy 2, and where they have a resource location restricted to West US, and then there's more explanation how this policy works. So this is a very good.
And the order evaluation is important to know because you will see that in exams, because the whole understanding, if you've got a bunch of policies, what's actually going to take effect, right? How do they balance between that? So that's a really good site to go through that. And the other thing too, I would recommend is just try it, right? Go into your portal, go into there, apply a bunch of policies at the management group, subscription, resource groups, ones that might counteract each other, and then see what happens, right? And that's where you're really, because I understand, I'm a visual learner. Reading this to me be like, I'm going, okay, lovely. Thank you for writing it out. So I'm hands-on learner. So open up and do it, right? Actually apply policies at different levels and do like, I'm going to allow you to do this here, but I'm going to deny you here. And guess what? I'm going to allow you to do it again. So what actually is going to happen? And you'll see hands-on how that really works. So we got 2 more minutes left. Is there any questions? The way I think of it though, Maria, we kind of got through the permissions, management group, and policies, which is kind of, if you take one of our AZ104 courses, is exactly kind of how it starts. So if you would like us to run another office hours in a few more weeks, and we can continue on with the next level. So I guess the next would be networking, right? And we can have a networking discussion and storage. So if you want us to run other office hours and continue on with prepping you, you got a good basic understanding of management groups, permissions, and policies.
Yeah, also when it comes to storage, so storage goes also hand in hand with networks instance, when we can look more at when it comes to some endpoints as well for that. Yeah,
the whole understanding of private endpoints versus shared, what is it? I keep telling you.
Private endpoint, service endpoint.
Service endpoint. I was going to say shared endpoints. I'm like, I know it starts with an S. Service endpoints and private endpoints, it can be very confusing. I know I was confused when I first started learning it. I was like, why do we have both? Why when we deal with one over the other? Those are great conversations to have too in a live environment. All right, it's end of the hour, so thank you so much for joining and putting up with our technical difficulties at the beginning there. I'm going to figure out how we can get the people, I'm looking at my other screen here, so the people that are in the webinar, how they can ask questions and we can hear you properly without that. It was weird. But anyway, so thank you so much. We will run another one of these, continuing on with our learning in the next few weeks. But other than that, bye everyone.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye.